John had always been a man of routine. He woke up early every morning, brewed his coffee in the same small kitchen he shared with Maria, and sat at the wooden table by the window, watching the sun rise over the quiet streets of their neighborhood. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery nearby used to make him smile, but now it only reminded him of the mornings when Maria would wake before him, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The memory of her voice was vivid, almost tangible, but it also cut through him like a gentle, persistent ache. Since Maria's passing, the house felt empty in ways John had never imagined. He would walk from room to room, noticing the small details he had taken for granted before. The little vase on the shelf that Maria had placed there with fresh flowers each week now stood empty, collecting dust. The cushions on the sofa remained in perfect order, as if she had left them that way herself. Every object seemed to echo with her presence, making silence feel heavier than it had any right to. Even the garden, which had once bloomed with Maria's careful touch, seemed less alive without her hands tending to the soil, planting seeds, and watering the flowers. John had tried to maintain it, but his touch felt clumsy, and the colors seemed dimmer. He had friends who reached out, some calling to check on him, others inviting him for lunch or a walk. John appreciated their efforts, but he often declined. There was a certain comfort in walking alone, even if it was accompanied by a constant, gnawing sadness. He felt as though he was carrying Maria with him in every step, every glance at the empty chair at the dining table, every quiet sigh that escaped his lips. Sometimes, he wondered if he would ever feel normal again, or if the world would always appear to him as a faded photograph, beautiful yet untouchable. The first few months after her death were the hardest. Nights were the worst. John would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. In the darkness, memories would flood in the way Maria would laugh when she found something amusing, the way she would curl up beside him on the couch with a book, the soft brushing of her hand against his arm when she wanted comfort. These memories, while precious, were also a reminder of what he had lost. Sleep often eluded him, and when it did come, it was restless, filled with dreams that were sometimes comforting and sometimes cruel. He began to notice little things that reminded him of her everywhere. A song on the radio, a certain scent in the air, or even a pattern on a passing stranger's clothing could trigger a memory of Maria. These moments would leave him both comforted and heartbroken, a strange mixture that he was still learning to navigate. People around him told him that grief takes time, that it cannot be rushed, but John felt as if he were suspended in a state of waiting for something he could not name, something that might never arrive. John's work, which he had once enjoyed, became a background noise in his life. He worked in a small office, handling numbers and reports, but the tasks that once challenged him now felt mechanical. His colleagues were kind, occasionally asking if he was okay, but John could not bring himself to explain the depth of his sorrow. It was not just sadness. It was a hollowing, a quiet emptiness that touched every aspect of his life. He found himself staring out the office window during work hours, watching the world move on without him, feeling as if he were watching from behind a glass wall that he could not cross. In the quiet moments, John often found himself talking to Maria, as if she were still there in the room with him. He would speak aloud, telling her about his day, sharing thoughts, or even asking questions that he knew she could not answer. It was strange, he knew, but it brought a small sense of closeness, a tiny comfort amidst the heavy grief. Sometimes he would visit her favorite spots, the little cafe where she had her favorite tea, the park bench she loved, the bookstore she wandered in for hours. Being there without her was painful, yet it also allowed him to feel a connection, a reminder that she had once been part of his daily world in the most profound way. Family gatherings, holidays, and birthdays became particularly difficult. John had always enjoyed celebrating with Maria, planning small surprises, decorating their home, and making sure that every moment felt special. Now, the thought of these occasions brought an ache he could not soothe. He sometimes found himself avoiding these events, taking long walks instead, walking aimlessly through streets, alleys, and parks, letting his mind wander and replay memories. People often saw him alone, lost in thought, and some approached with gentle words. He would nod and smile politely, but the words felt hollow. No one could truly understand the depth of the void he felt. And yet, amidst the sorrow, John found small moments of grace. On some mornings, a bird would sing outside his window, reminding him of Maria's love for nature. Or he would find a note she had left, tucked away in a drawer or a book, her handwriting bringing both tears and a smile. These small reminders gave him strength, even if fleeting. He realized that grief was not a straight path, but a winding one, filled with moments of sorrow and unexpected glimpses of peace. As the seasons changed, John began to notice that the world, though still heavy with absence, was slowly continuing. Leaves fell and grew back, rains came and passed, and the sun rose and set with relentless persistence. He found himself walking longer distances, exploring parts of the city he had not noticed before, and slowly allowing himself to engage with the living world around him. He started to speak with neighbors, visit the local markets, and even engage in small conversations with strangers. Each interaction was a small step toward rejoining life, a way to remind himself that he could still feel, still connect, and still care. Yet, John's heart remained anchored in memory. Maria's absence was a shadow that followed him, one he could not escape. The house was still quiet, and the garden still required his attention. He tended it as best as he could, planting new flowers and watering the old ones. Imagining Maria's hands beside his, he often spoke to her as he worked, sharing the small triumphs and struggles of maintaining the garden. It was as if her presence lingered in every blossom, every leaf, and every breath of wind. These routines, though simple, became acts of love, reminders that, though she was gone, the life they had shared could still be honored and remembered. Despite the heavy grief, John began to notice subtle changes in himself. He was learning patience in ways he had never imagined. He discovered resilience in the quiet moments, the ability to face each day, even when it seemed impossible. And though loneliness was still a constant companion, it no longer felt like a prison. It became a space where memory, reflection, and a slow healing could coexist. John began to understand that grief was not something to be conquered or forgotten, but something to carry, to live with, and to allow shape the person he was becoming. Walking alone one evening, John paused on a quiet street, looking up at the sky as it darkened with the approaching night. He thought about Maria, about their shared dreams, laughter, and love. The sadness remained, but so did a sense of connection, a realization that life, even in its hardest moments, offered glimpses of hope and beauty. He breathed deeply, feeling the cool air fill his lungs, and whispered her name softly, a simple act that somehow felt like reaching across the distance between life and memory. In that quiet moment, John felt a fragile, yet real sense of peace. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but he also knew he could continue, carrying Maria in his heart, and finding ways to honor her memory in every step he took. John had settled into a quiet routine, walking the same streets, tending to memories, and finding small moments of solace in the everyday world. One rainy afternoon, as gray clouds stretched across the sky and the first drops began to fall, he felt an unusual tug at his attention. A faint sound reached him through the steady rhythm of rain, the soft, uneven sound of someone crying. It was muffled, yet insistent, breaking through the usual quiet of the street. He paused, glancing around. The city streets were nearly empty. Most people had sought shelter under awnings, buses, or in nearby shops, but the sound came from a nearby park, a small green space tucked between old apartment buildings. Without thinking, John followed it. Each step brought the sound into clearer focus. The crying was gentle, not loud or demanding, but it carried a deep, aching vulnerability that seemed impossible to ignore. As he entered the park, he saw her. A young girl, no older than 7 or 8, crouched under the wide branches of an old oak tree. Her small body was shivering, her thin coat soaked through, and her tiny hands hugged her knees tightly. Her hair was damp, plastered to her face, and her eyes, large, round, and glistening, reflected a depth of fear that made John's chest tighten. She was alone. Something in her reminded him of Maria. Not in the exactness of her features, but in the depth of her gaze, the quiet intensity of her presence, and the fragility that seemed so familiar. It was a moment that stopped him in his tracks. He knew he needed to help her, but he also knew he had to approach carefully. The child was frightened, and sudden movements or loud words could scare her further. John knelt down slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. He lowered himself to her level, letting the rain fall on his shoulders but focusing entirely on her. "Hey there," he said softly, his voice barely louder than a whisper. "It's okay. You don't have to be scared." The girl froze, her eyes widening as she stared at him. John continued, "Don't cry, little one. You're safe now." The words seemed to reach her, though she didn't move immediately. She just looked at him, blinking through tears, as if deciding whether she could trust him. John stayed still, giving her space while maintaining eye contact. He noticed the way her lips quivered, the subtle shake of her small shoulders, and the way she seemed to shrink even more into herself. He could see her vulnerability so clearly that it almost hurt to witness. Slowly, carefully, he extended his hand. "I'm John," he said. "I can help you if you want me to." For a long moment, the girl said nothing. Then, with a hesitant movement, she reached out and took his hand. The contact was tiny, almost imperceptible, yet it was enough. John gently pulled her close under his jacket to shield her from the rain. He kept speaking softly, letting her know that she was not alone. The girl finally spoke in a small, trembling voice. I can't find my mommy." John's heart ached at the words. He could feel the fear and confusion in her tone. "It's okay," he said. "We will find her together. You're not alone anymore." The girl's eyes, still wet with tears, locked on his. There was a strange, quiet trust forming, fragile yet undeniable. He remembered Maria again, not just her appearance, but her kindness, her ability to make others feel safe. Somehow, this girl reminded him of that same warmth. He led her slowly out of the park and toward a nearby sheltered bench. He kept talking in a calm, reassuring tone, asking her small questions about herself, her favorite color, her school, whether she liked drawing. Each answer was cautious, shy, but it helped to break the ice. The girl began to relax slightly, leaning into his presence. John realized that trust, once earned, could grow quickly, even in the midst of fear and uncertainty. As they sat together, John noticed small details: the frayed cuffs of her coat, the worn-out shoes, the way she hugged her knees tightly whenever she spoke. It was clear that she had been through a difficult day, perhaps even a difficult week. He offered her a small snack from his bag, which he always carried for emergencies, and she took it hesitantly. She seemed surprised at the kindness, as if it was unfamiliar to her. John smiled gently, telling her that it was okay to accept help, that everyone needed it sometimes. They stayed there for a while, the rain falling softly around them. John could sense her slowly calming, the trembling of her hands lessening, the tears slowing. She began to talk in small fragments about herself, her school, her favorite storybooks, and a little dog she missed dearly. John listened patiently, asking gentle questions and offering comforting words. The bond between them, delicate and new, was forming. He could feel it. After some time, John decided they needed to find her mother. He walked with her slowly, making sure she felt safe with every step. She held his hand tightly now, a sign that her fear had lessened, replaced by a tentative trust. He thought about what he would say to the authorities or the social workers if needed. But for now, he focused only on the child in front of him. Her safety and comfort were his only concern. Along the way, the girl shared more details about her home, speaking softly about her mother's work and why she had been left alone briefly. John nodded, reassuring her that everything would be okay, that adults would take care of her, and that she would soon be reunited with her family. He felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in a long time. For years, his life had been wrapped in memories of Maria, full of loss and quiet sadness. Now, here was someone who needed him, someone whose presence required care and attention. And it brought a strange and welcome energy to his world. As they reached the main street, the rain had begun to let up. The city seemed quieter now, almost as if the world had paused for this moment. John spotted a nearby police officer patrolling the area. He approached and explained the situation calmly. The officer listened, asking the girl a few gentle questions to make sure she was safe. John stayed by her side, holding her hand, offering quiet reassurance. He could see the relief in her eyes as she realized that adults were there to help, that she would not be left alone again. After a short wait, the girl's mother arrived, her face filled with worry and relief. She hugged her daughter tightly, tears streaming down her face, thanking John repeatedly. The girl turned briefly to look at John, her eyes meeting his, and in that moment, John felt a quiet, unspoken connection. She reminded him again of Maria, the same trust, the same gentle spirit. It was a fleeting moment, but one he knew he would never forget. As the mother led the girl away, John stayed for a moment, watching them disappear into the distance. The city was bustling again, life continuing in its steady rhythm. But he felt changed. He had come across a moment of pure human connection, a reminder that even amidst sorrow and loss, compassion could create something meaningful. He realized that grief did not have to isolate him entirely. Life could still offer moments of joy, responsibility, and care. Walking back home, John reflected on the day. The encounter had stirred something deep inside him, a mix of nostalgia, hope, and purpose. He thought about Maria, about the love they had shared, and about how that love could continue to inspire him. He smiled faintly, a rare and genuine expression after months of sorrow. For the first time in a long while, he felt that life, though painful, was also filled with possibilities, with connections that could heal wounds slowly, quietly, and profoundly. That day marked a turning point. John did not yet know where this path would lead him, but he understood something essential. Kindness and care could bridge loneliness. Even small actions, a gentle word, a shared snack, a guiding hand, could leave a lasting impact. And sometimes, fate could place someone in your path, someone who would remind you that life, even after loss, could hold moments of profound connection. As night fell, John returned to his quiet home, the rain leaving droplets on his coat, and paused for a moment at the doorway. He looked around at the familiar space, the empty rooms, the silent garden, and for the first time in a long while, he felt that his life, though still shadowed by grief, was beginning to move forward. The memory of the girl, her trusting eyes, and the fragile bond they had shared, lingered with him. It was a promise of hope, a reminder that compassion could illuminate even the darkest days. John went to bed that night with a sense of quiet reflection. He knew that tomorrow, the city would be the same, the streets busy, the routines unchanged. But something inside him had shifted, a small spark of connection, a reminder of the beauty of human kindness, had been reignited. And as he drifted into sleep, he carried with him the thought that grief could coexist with new beginnings, that loss could exist alongside hope, and that love, whether in memory or in a fleeting encounter, was never truly gone. In the days following the encounter at the park, John could not stop thinking about the little girl. Her eyes, wide and full of trust, had left an impression on him that he could not shake. He found himself walking the familiar streets near the park more often, hoping though he didn't fully understand why that he might see her again. The memory of her tiny hands in his, the soft voice, the quiet courage in her demeanor, stayed with him. He realized that her presence had stirred something deep inside him, something he had not felt since Maria had passed. A sense of responsibility, a spark of purpose, and the possibility of new connections. A few days later, while walking through the park again, John saw her sitting alone on the same bench where they had shared a small snack. She looked up as he approached, hesitation in her eyes, but the trust was there. "Hello," John said softly, careful not to startle her. "How are you today?" She responded with a shy nod. her lips barely forming a smile. John offered her a small chocolate bar he had brought, and she accepted it. A small sign of comfort and connection. They began to meet regularly. John did not force conversation, understanding that the girl needed time and patience. Instead, he focused on presence, simply being there, sitting beside her, allowing her to feel safe and cared for. Slowly, she began to open up, sharing little details about her daily life, her school, and her small joys and worries. She spoke about her favorite books, the drawings she liked to make, and the way she sometimes felt lonely when her mother was busy. John listened with gentle attention, offering reassurance and warmth without judgment. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between them deepened. John began to notice subtle changes in the girl. The way she no longer flinched at sudden movements. The way her voice grew steadier. The way she started to smile more freely. She began to trust him in ways that surprised even John. He discovered that her name was Lily, and that her mother had been struggling with a temporary illness, which had caused the brief separation that had led to their first encounter. Understanding this, John felt an even stronger desire to be a steady presence in Lily's life. Someone she could rely on, without fear. John began bringing small things to make their meetings brighter. Sometimes it was a warm blanket on a chilly day. Other times it was a little notebook for her drawings, or snacks she enjoyed. He also began telling her stories, carefully crafted tales about courage, kindness, and hope. Lily listened with rapt attention, her imagination ignited by his words. In these moments, John felt a quiet joy that had been absent for years. For the first time since Maria's passing, he experienced the simple delight of sharing, teaching, and guiding another life. Over time, Lily began to confide in John about her fears and sadness. She spoke about being alone, about missing her mother when she was away, and about worries that sometimes kept her awake at night. John listened patiently, never rushing her or dismissing her feelings. Instead, he offered comfort, practical advice, and reassurance. "It's okay to feel scared," he told her gently one afternoon. "Everyone feels scared sometimes. But you are brave, and you are never alone when someone cares for you." Lily looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a growing sense of security and understanding. John also shared small parts of his own life with Lily. He spoke about Maria not in a way that caused sadness, but in a way that honored her memory. He described her love for nature, her gentle humor, and the kindness she had shown to everyone around her. Lily listened intently, fascinated by these stories, and John realized that sharing memories of someone he loved was a way to keep their spirit alive. It was also a way to teach Lily that love could endure, even after loss, and that connections could be found in unexpected places. They began to explore the city together in safe, supervised ways. John took Lily to small parks, local libraries, and quiet streets where she could run and play freely. Each outing was filled with gentle encouragement, playful laughter, and shared discovery. John noticed that Lily's confidence grew with each visit. She learned to trust not only him, but also the world around her. He could see her joy in the smallest things: the flutter of a bird, the ripple of water in a fountain, the excitement of spotting a colorful flower. Through these moments, John began to rediscover the beauty in ordinary life, seeing it anew through Lily's eyes. One afternoon, as they walked through a sunlit park, Lily stopped suddenly and turned to John. "You remind me of my mommy," she said softly. Her words were simple, but they struck him deeply. He smiled gently and nodded. "That's a lovely thing to hear," he replied. "And you remind me of someone very special too." They continued walking hand in hand, a quiet understanding growing between them. Each step was filled with trust, care, and a mutual recognition of the bond they shared. John began to notice how these moments with Lily were helping him heal. The emptiness he had carried since Maria's passing seemed less heavy. He found that by caring for Lily, by being present for her, he was reconnecting with his own capacity for love and compassion. Grief was still there, quiet and persistent, but it was no longer all-consuming. It had room to coexist with hope, purpose, and the quiet joy of making a difference in someone else's life. At home, John reflected on his growing bond with Lily. He realized that while he had initially approached their meetings out of instinctive kindness, he had grown deeply attached to her well-being. He began to understand that love could take many forms. It could exist as memory, as in his love for Maria, and as active care, as in his care for Lily. Both were valid, both were real, and both were important. This realization brought him a sense of peace he had not felt in years. John also began to notice the subtle ways in which Lily's presence was changing him. He was more patient, more attentive, and more attuned to the small details of life. He smiled more easily, laughed more freely, and began to appreciate ordinary moments in ways he had long forgotten. Even mundane tasks, like preparing a small snack or carrying her drawing supplies, became acts of meaning. He realized that these small moments, repeated over time, created bonds that were stronger than words or grand gestures. Their routine became a gentle rhythm. Mornings were often quiet walks to the park, afternoons filled with stories, games, and small adventures. Evenings were times of reflection, sharing small discoveries, or simply sitting together in silence, feeling safe and connected. Lily had begun to speak more openly, sharing her dreams, fears, and little hopes for the future. John listened with unwavering attention, encouraging her, celebrating her courage, and teaching her that her feelings mattered. In the midst of these days, John discovered that he was learning as much as Lily. He learned patience in ways he had never imagined, the importance of quiet presence, and the power of gentle guidance. He realized that caring for someone else did not diminish grief, but could transform it into something meaningful. By helping Lily navigate her world, he was also helping himself navigate his own grief. He was learning that life, even after loss, could offer moments of profound connection, growth, and love. One rainy afternoon, much like the day they first met, Lily looked up at John with her wide, trusting eyes. "You always make me feel safe," she said softly. John smiled, a deep warmth filling his chest. "And you make me feel that life is still full of hope," he replied. Their hands met, small fingers entwined, a symbol of the bond they had built. In that quiet moment, John understood the true depth of their connection. It was not just about care. It was about trust, understanding, and the quiet, persistent power of love. As the weeks passed, John noticed a change in Lily's confidence. She walked taller, spoke with more assurance, and faced small challenges with courage. He felt proud, not in a boastful way, but in a quiet, heartfelt sense of fulfillment. He realized that their time together had become a journey of healing for both of them. She had brought him back to life in a way he had never expected, and he had given her a sense of security, care, and guidance she desperately needed. John often reflected on the lessons he was learning from Lily. He realized that grief was not something to overcome entirely, but something to live with, carry forward, and allow to coexist with love, hope, and new connections. He understood that human connections, no matter how brief or unexpected, could change lives in profound ways. And he knew that the bond he had formed with Lily was one that would continue to influence him, shaping his heart and his understanding of life for years to come. By the time Lily's mother was able to be more present and care for her fully, John and Lily had shared weeks of trust, laughter, and small adventures. The connection they had formed would remain, a quiet testament to the power of patience, love, and gentle guidance. John knew that this bond, though it might change with time, had already transformed both of their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. He felt gratitude for the unexpected encounter that had brought them together, and a sense of hope for the days to come. In the quiet moments, John often thought about Maria, about her spirit, her kindness, and the love they had shared. He realized that Maria's memory had guided him to be patient, compassionate, and attentive. In caring for Lily, he was honoring Maria's memory in the most profound way possible. By spreading kindness, offering safety, and nurturing life, it was a delicate balance of past and present, grief and hope, memory and new beginnings. By the end of these weeks, John felt a transformation within himself. He had rediscovered a part of his heart that he thought had been lost forever. He had learned that love could take many forms, that grief could coexist with joy, and that even in the aftermath of loss, life could offer meaningful connections. The bond with Lily was a living reminder that healing is possible, that trust can grow, and that the human heart is capable of extraordinary resilience. The day finally came when Lily's mother was well enough to take full responsibility for her care. John had been expecting this moment, yet when it arrived, he felt a mixture of relief, pride, and a touch of sadness. Over the past weeks, he had grown deeply attached to Lily. Their days together had been filled with laughter, stories, small adventures, and quiet moments of trust. He knew their bond had helped heal both of them, but now, as the reunion approached, he wondered how it would feel to let her go. That morning, the sun shone brightly through the clouds, casting a warm light over the park where they had first met. Lily's mother had arrived earlier than expected, her face a mixture of worry and anticipation. She approached cautiously, aware of how important the past weeks had been for her daughter. Lily, who had grown more confident and secure, ran toward her mother with a mixture of excitement and caution. John followed slowly, observing the reunion with a quiet sense of fulfillment. As Lily embraced her mother, her tiny arms wrapping tightly around her, John felt a lump in his throat. He watched as her mother held her close, whispering soothing words, tears streaming down both of their faces. It was a moment of pure human connection, filled with relief, love, and the kind of joy that comes after a long period of worry or pain. John realized that his role in Lily's life had been temporary, but profound. He had been a source of comfort and guidance when she needed it most. And now, he could step back, knowing that she was safe. Lily turned her head briefly to look at John. Their eyes met, and in that instant, a silent understanding passed between them. She reached for his hand one last time, and he knelt down to her level. "Thank you," she whispered softly, her voice full of warmth. John smiled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "You don't need to thank me, Lily," he said gently. "You've been brave, and you've taught me so much too." She smiled shyly, and with one final squeeze of his hand, she ran back into her mother's embrace. As they walked away, John remained for a moment, watching them disappear down the path. The park, which had been a place of uncertainty and fear when he first found Lily, now felt peaceful and alive. The leaves shimmered in the sunlight, the birds sang softly, and the faint scent of flowers filled the air. John took a deep breath, allowing himself to fully feel the emotions of the moment. Pride, relief, and a quiet sense of accomplishment mingled with a lingering sadness, reminding him that love often requires letting go. Walking home, John reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He thought about the first time he saw Lily, shivering under the oak tree, eyes full of fear and uncertainty. He remembered the slow, careful steps of building trust, the small joys of shared snacks and stories, and the quiet moments of connection that had formed the foundation of their bond. Each memory reminded him of the power of patience, compassion, and human kindness. He realized that these weeks had changed him profoundly. At home, John felt a quiet sense of completion. The house, once filled with echoes of loss and loneliness, now seemed calmer, as if the recent weeks had brought a sense of healing and renewal. He walked through the rooms, noticing small details: the wooden table by the window, the garden outside, the little objects that once reminded him only of absence. Now, they also reminded him of connection, resilience, and the unexpected ways life could offer hope. He realized that grief had not disappeared, but it had transformed. It was no longer a weight that crushed him, but a gentle presence that coexisted with the joy and meaning he had found through Lily. John began to engage more with his community. The experience with Lily had reignited a sense of purpose within him. He started volunteering at local children's centers, offering his time to read stories, share guidance, and provide comfort to children in need. Each interaction brought him joy, and he saw the tangible impact of his presence in the lives of others. He discovered that the lessons of patience, empathy, and gentle care he had learned with Lily could be shared more broadly, bringing meaning to his days and a renewed connection to the world around him. As the weeks turned into months, John continued to carry Maria's memory with him. Her presence, once a source of only sorrow, had become a guiding light, shaping the way he interacted with others. He often thought of her while volunteering, drawing strength from the love they had shared and the compassion she had inspired in him. In helping others, he was honoring her memory in a living, active way, keeping her spirit alive through his actions and care. John occasionally met Lily in passing, visiting the park or attending community events where she played. Each encounter was brief, but filled with warmth and recognition. Lily would smile, wave, or share a small story, and John would respond with gentle encouragement. These moments, though fleeting, reminded him that connections formed with trust and care could endure, even when circumstances changed. The bond they had shared was now a cherished memory, a quiet testament to the impact they had on each other's lives. He also began to notice subtle changes in himself. His grief, while still present, had softened. He smiled more easily, laughed more freely, and allowed himself to feel joy without guilt. He had learned that healing does not erase loss but allows it to coexist with new experiences, relationships, and opportunities for growth. John felt a renewed sense of hope, realizing that life could continue to offer meaningful moments, even after profound sadness. One evening, as he sat in the garden he and Maria had tended together, John reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, a reminder that life continues in cycles of growth and renewal. The memories of Maria, once filled with sorrow, now brought a sense of warmth and guidance, and the experience with Lily had shown him that love and connection could still be found, even in unexpected places. He felt gratitude for the lessons he had learned, the bonds he had formed, and the opportunity to heal through compassion and care. John realized that life is made up of small moments, each holding the potential to shape our hearts and minds. A simple act of kindness, a shared smile, a gentle word, these are the threads that weave the fabric of human connection. His time with Lily had been a powerful reminder of this truth. It had shown him that even amidst grief, one can find purpose, joy, and meaningful relationships. It had reminded him that love is not limited to one person or one experience. It can expand, evolve, and touch lives in ways we often do not anticipate. In the quiet of the evening, John felt a sense of peace he had not known for a long time. He understood that grief and healing are intertwined, that loss can coexist with hope, and that human connection is one of the most profound forces in life. He thought of Maria, of Lily, and of the countless small moments that had shaped his journey, and in that reflection, he found comfort, strength, and a quiet joy that had been missing from his days for far too long. John knew that challenges would continue to come, that life would present difficulties and moments of sorrow, but he also knew that he had learned valuable lessons about patience, empathy, love, and resilience. He had learned that opening one's heart, even after loss, can bring unexpected joy and healing. And he had learned that the bonds we form, even briefly, can leave lasting impressions, shaping the course of our lives in meaningful ways. As night fell, John sat quietly in his home, the soft glow of the lamps illuminating familiar corners. He reflected on the journey from sorrow to hope, from isolation to connection, and from grief to a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that life, though fragile and unpredictable, is also filled with opportunities for love, compassion, and healing. And he knew that the memories of Maria, the bond with Lily, and the kindness he had shared would continue to guide him, inspiring him to live fully, care deeply, and embrace the beauty of human connection. In the weeks and months that followed, John continued to live with intention. He tended the garden, kept memories of Maria alive, and nurtured the connections he had forged with others. He found that even small acts of care could have profound effects, creating ripples of kindness that extended far beyond himself. And though he sometimes felt the familiar ache of loss, it no longer defined him. Instead, it existed alongside the love, joy, and purpose he had discovered through his experiences with Lily and through the enduring memory of Maria. Life, John realized, is a journey of balance between grief and hope, loss and love, past and present. And in understanding this balance, he found a quiet happiness, a sense of fulfillment, and a deep appreciation for the beauty and complexity of human connection. He knew that he had been given a gift, the chance to heal, to love again, and to touch the life of another in a meaningful way. And with that understanding, John faced each new day with courage, gratitude, and an open heart, ready to embrace whatever life would bring next.